Hello, welcome to the Jones Zone. Uh, you will have noticed in the past few of these that I've just been wearing the same clothes. That's because I just decided to film a few back to back, so that I can just get ahead of the game. Um, Today, I want to talk about something that I think can get quite difficult for newcomers to Doctor Who, and that is like where to start with it. I'm thinking this is a where to start with Doctor Who, but I can also do a where to start with a lot of other things like Star Wars, for example. So yeah, so I'll do this where to start with Doctor Who. But if there's anything you want to know where you should start with, like Marvel and DC and all that sort of stuff, let me know in the comments below. And always uh, remember to leave a like if you enjoy the content I do. So where to start with Doctor Who? I generally tell newcomers to watch New Who. As much as I love both classic and modern Doctor Who, I generally always tell newcomers to watch New Who as a starting off point. And the reason behind that is classic Doctor Who is really hard to get into if you don't know whether you're going to like it, because it's very much of its time, and I mean it shows, especially now when like if you start getting the Blu-ray collection box sets and watching old Who in high definition, its age really shows. So my general rule of thumb is, if you are a newcomer to Doctor Who and you just want to know where to start, New Who. Now, there's, I think, a select number of starting points for New Who. I think you've got Series 1 is a starting point. And to me, there's not, in terms of like 9 and 10, so Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, I think the only starting point really is with Christopher Eccleston. I don't think there's a good enough jumping in point with David Tennant because of where that changeover lies. Because I mean, usually I'd say you can jump in at the start of any Doctor. However, where the changeover lies with 9 and 10, Rose carries over, and there are things that you probably wouldn't know from the first series. So I always say, first starting off point is the start of the Russell T Davies era. Series 1 all the way through to the end of time. That's like your first kind of starting point. You can watch that entire era at your leisure. And then I'd say the next starting on point is Matt Smith, Series 5. And again, so Matt Smith is lucky. He has 2 starting points for me. However, I wouldn't suggest the second starting point just because it's a bit strange to jump in there. But I think Series 5 is a good starting on point, and you could also start with Series 7. I believe it's episode 6, The Snowman, the Christmas special in 2012, because the Ponds leave and Clara comes into it. The only thing with that is you do get the odd reference to the Ponds, but I think you can get away with jumping in there. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could get away with it. The next jumping in point I'd say is Peter Capaldi's first series, Series 8, because when the Doctor changes, and he changes with, even though this is a different one to Series 1 to 2, because the companion carries over. However, Clara always feels more like 12's companion than she did at 11's. So I think Series 8's a good jumping in point. Capaldi's also lucky because he's also got Series 10, which I think is also a good jumping in point, because the first episode of Series 10 is called The Pilot, and it very much feels like a pilot episode. And then you have Series 11 with Jodie Whittaker. I think that's also another really good jumping in point. Personally, I'd recommend, if you want to get into it, just start from the beginning of New Who and just go all the way through. Because New Who is... It can be up and down, but I tend to think that people who don't really know the show, who aren't fans of it, tend to enjoy all of it more. And then if you like New Who, then you can start with the classics. The only time I would suggest jumping in with the classics instead is if you prefer dated sci-fi. So if you prefer that kind of old classic sci-fi feel, then jumping in the classics is great. And the benefit to jumping in with the classics is, I personally believe you don't have to start from any particular season, because it was in more of a serial format. So you'd have a story, and the stories would be cut up into parts. So I think there are stories you can jump in with. I think it's a bit trickier with William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton, who are the first and second Doctor, because I think in that era you have to have a lot of patience for the quality, because it's the 60s. The BBC put absolutely sod all money into it. And I would always recommend, if you want to try black and white Doctor Who from back in the day, start with the very first story, An Unearthly Child. And if you like An Unearthly Child, then just sort of pick the ones that you think sound interesting. Because then it doesn't matter too much, because there's a lot of lost episodes from 60s Doctor Who. So that's a bit easier to pick and choose from. But then I'd recommend stories like Spearhead from Space, which is the third Doctor's first story. Terror of the Autons, which is the first appearance of the Master. I really like the Sea Devils. I just have to get that one in there. Doctor Who and the Silurians. Doctor Who the Green Death. Doctor Who Planet of the Spiders. Doctor Who the Sontaran Experiment. Doctor Who the Time Warrior. Doctor Who Invasion of Time. I don't know why I keep saying Doctor Who in front of it. You know what the show is. The Deadly Assassin. Robots. Genesis of the Daleks. Revenge of the Cybermen. Earthshock. Resurrection of the Daleks. Remembrance of the Daleks. Revelation of the Daleks. I mean, any Dalek story, to be honest. If you want to follow a nice chain of Dalek stories, follow Davros's appearances. So starts with Genesis of the Daleks, then you get Destiny of the Daleks, then you get Resurrection of the Daleks, Revelation of the Daleks, Remembrance of the Daleks. And that's a really good chain of stories to follow through Classic Who, because that starts with the first two of the fourth Doctor, then you get one with the fifth, one with the sixth, one with the seventh. And then you could watch The Stolen Earth Journey's End if you wanted to. However, you can't just jump into those, because there's a lot of backstory before you get into those. But that's my recommendation. I mean, I can give a whole list of recommendations in terms of Classic Who, of the ones that I think are accessible. The one I'd say don't jump into as your first ever Doctor Who episode to watch is the TV movie. I like the TV movie personally. I mean, it's not great, but I have a soft spot for it. But if you watch, it's so American. It's so American, and it's so not very BBC. So that's a really weird jumping in point. So that is where to start. Doctor Who. 2005 Series 1 is my first recommendation of a jumping in point. My second is Matt Smith 2010 Series 5. My third is going to be Peter Capaldi 2014 Series 8. My fifth will be Peter Capaldi 2017, Series 10. And my final recommendation is going to be Jodie Whittaker, Series 11, 2018. And then hit me up in the comments if you want some classic Doctor Who story recommendations, and I'll give you a list. So thanks for watching this, and I'll see you next time. Oh, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.